Hello. Today in our series on Africa's business leaders, we're in conversation with Professor Rajen Pillay, a distinguished figure in the banking and financial services sector. As the CEO of Garuda Capital, which is a boutique investment banking firm based in South Africa, Professor Pillay has been instrumental in facilitating major mergers and acquisitions, capital raises, and complex financial structuring, with transactions ranging from $5 million to over $700 million. Beyond his corporate achievements, he plays a pivotal role in the BRICS Business Council, serving on the Financial Services Working Group and chairing the BRICS Pay Banking and Fintech subcommittee. Now, his efforts are central to advancing financial cooperation amongst the BRICS nations and promoting innovative payment solutions. Professor Rajen Pillay, thanks so much indeed for joining us on the BRICS Africa Channel.
Thank you, Peter. Always nice to chat to you. Thank you.
So, Prof, Garuda Capital, that's been in business for a while now, offering a range of services, including mergers, acquisitions, capital raising, corporate finance structuring. I wonder if you could take us through the vision behind founding it and what sets you apart in a very competitive financial services marketplace.
Yes, that's a very nice question. Thank you, Peter. So I've spent most of my working life in large financial corporates. That means the banks and insurance companies, stockbroking. I'm a stockbroker by profession. But what we find is that the large corporates tend to pay attention to their larger customers and their larger clients. And the emerging customers and emerging clients, emerging businesses, which are not quite at a, let's say, a medium stage, tend to get shunned, and they tend to get ignored, and they don't get the attention that they need. Our feeling is that in terms of customer services, you've got to be able to look at people, look at their businesses, and give them the attention and the service that they require. In South Africa, there's domination by 4 or 5 of the largest banks. And if you're not in their top tier clients, you're not really going to be looked at. So there was a marketing space and an opportunity to be giving financial intermediation services between the banks and the large auditing companies, such that emerging companies, emerging businesses could be more active and receive more support in the mergers and acquisition space, in the capital raising space, and the corporate finance structuring side of things. So there is, and at the time when I started Garuda Capital, there was a big need for that, and there still is a need because it's a problem which the government always talks about. Small emerging black businesses don't have access to the finance and the funding and the support that they require, and that's still not been rectified to this day. So we find ourselves being very relevant. And we are able to help smaller clients grow into larger clients.
So talk to me a little bit about how financial services companies such as yours, firms like yours, fit into the BRICS story. Is that a universe that you can sit in?
Yes. Well, the experience is in financial services. So whether we're in a large corporate or a small boutique M&A firm as we are, it's no matter. There is a thrust amongst BRICS because BRICS is a grouping of emerging countries, emerging economies. Clearly, a major portion of their economies are driven by small to medium businesses. So we are able to interact as a small boutique firm, meet their requirements. And this is typically the driving matter behind BRICS, developing of emerging economies, developing of emerging companies, and helping everybody grow. So we find ourselves to be perfectly positioned. And with the BRICS play, because it's a grouping of developing countries such as China, India, Russia, etc., we find that we can do a lot of work with those economies which South Africa would not normally have been exposed to. Historically, our trading partners in South Africa were the Western countries. And because of the apartheid policies, we always looked west rather than looking east. I think that's a very welcome shift in focus because it has resonance. We are talking to like-minded people in like-minded economies, all of whom are wanting to develop their individual economies and the emerging entrepreneurs.
So you're a member of the BRICS Business Council, and in particular, working with the Financial Services Working Group. Talk to me about the role that you play in there and what your subcommittee does.
Yes, so I've been appointed since last year, the chairperson of the BRICS Pay Banking and Fintech Task Force. So I'm officially the country head in respect of South Africa, and we've been engaging with the various BRICS countries, Russia and China and India, Brazil, etc., all of last year, with the specific focus on banking, trade flows, banking mechanisms, etc.
So talk to me about some of the objectives that you have. What are you trying to do within the BRICS framework in these platforms?
Well, what we're trying to do is essentially form proper mechanisms to facilitate bilateral trade and trade within BRICS in the broader sense. Currently, many of the BRICS countries trade extensively with each other. It's not, you cannot say that across all BRICS countries because many BRICS countries have joined, and geographically there's a widespread, an extremely widespread across the various continents of BRICS members. There's been several members joining. So what we've been busy with is essentially looking at anything that can develop our economies. The issue has been that since the 1960s and the 70s, there's been a unipolar kind of world order. And that's now shifting with the emergence of emerging economies, as can be expected. Countries required to trade with whoever they prefer to trade with, whoever they're more comfortable with, and wherever it makes more commercial sense. So now that BRICS has come together as a political grouping, we in the subcommittee are focusing a lot of time and attention in terms of facilitating trade within the BRICS bloc. And this involves easier payments, easier cross-border payments, alternative and additional systems and mechanisms to be able to facilitate trade. Because we find that trade is, and from a South African perspective, the biggest issue that South Africa has is to reduce unemployment and create economic growth. Those are the two real fundamental pillars that South Africa needs to focus on, reducing employment and accelerating economic growth. Both those only really come from more economic activity, and this can be facilitated by more trade between BRICS partners, between BRICS members. And to be able to facilitate more trade, we have found that there's a requirement for cash flow management, cross-border payments, money transfers, etc. And those are the things that the committees across the world, the BRICS members have been looking at for the whole of last year, and from several years before I assumed the chairmanship of the South African chapter.
Is the desire to create a unified payment system, one that's separate from the global systems that kind of force you into the old order or the global order that's there at the moment?
Well, I think there are requirements from many BRICS members for an easier trade mechanisms, easier payment systems, etc. So I think from our discussions last year, there's no question of replacements of existing systems. I think we're looking at enhancing it, finding alternatives, and easier stop-go measures which can facilitate trade. So we're looking at things entirely fresh. Each economy has different requirements, and they operate on different rails as we speak technically from a banking perspective. What we're trying to do is introduce a bit more commonality, such that any BRICS member can maybe travel between the different BRICS countries and have interoperability, have access to the banking networks, and make payments and facilitate payments easier, quicker, faster, and cheaper.
And I'm going to press this a bit more because it's been topical.
Yes,
The issue of currencies,
yes,
so I'm trading with Uganda. We often have to go in between with the US dollar or something. Are we going to get
yes.
to a point where there is an acceptance or a flotation of BRICS currencies and not having to go to the US dollar in between?
I think that would be a bit of a long-term objective. I've continuously stated so. So I don't think in near term any of the committees are looking at that and giving it too much attention, simply because of the practicalities of it, the time lags, and the very, very complex conversion rates that would need to apply. So if you're talking about a common currency, we would expect that to be something on the horizon in the longer term, not in the near term. If you're talking about easier and better and alternative payment mechanisms, yes, we're looking at those currently. So we're not talking about any replacements or any rejection of individual currency mechanisms, but we're talking about complementing that, widening the network, increasing the scalability, the interoperability, etc.
One of the challenges of developing nations is a large number of people they find themselves excluded from the financial system. I just wonder if you are, as a collective, developing, I don't know, fintech innovations that make sure that more and more people are included.
Yes. Yes, Peter, that's absolutely spot on. We find that it's a common factor amongst most of the BRICS countries simply because they're developing economies. And large sections of the economy, in particular in South Africa, large sections of our economy have been excluded from the formal banking systems, banking channels. That has even been the case in India and China, a few years back. So we're all looking at including and increasing financial inclusion for the lower sections of each country's economies, and there's significant work being done on fintech applications, banking applications, mobile applications, and I can say that all of that has seen tremendous progress in the BRICS countries in the last 10 years. So the fintech applications are coming through. The accessibility to financial applications is definitely improved. However, what we're finding is that all of this is really very much infrastructural dependent on internet connectivity. So whilst applications might be there, if in rural areas there's no internet connectivity, those apps don't work and the access is not available. So it's upgrading the backbone of the telecom space infrastructure, essentially, which will allow much better for longer periods internet connectivity, and with that comes the cell phone technology, which is already there and able to handle it, and the banking and fintech applications, which are there in virtually every sphere. So it's a matter of being able to plug in. So some of the developing countries need really now to be able to increase or improve their backbone to get internet to wider sections of their own particular community, such that they may be linked up. But banking and fintech applications very high up in terms of importance.
South Africa has been seen traditionally as the gateway within this BRICS community into the African space, but we've seen now Egypt, Ethiopia joining the BRICS grouping. How has that changed the dynamic? Are we now looking at more and more countries being the African leg of BRICS, and how does that affect the work that you're doing as a subcommittee?
Well, yes, most certainly. When South Africa became the first African member of BRICS, we had the S in BRICS, the last letter, that being South Africa. And we went into it on the basis that we are really representing Africa in the broadest, continentally, and in terms of the continent, so wider representation. Now, a few years down the line, several of the of the African members are now, as you're saying, joining BRICS individually on their own. That really assists the representation, and we're very pleased to welcome those African countries in. We believe that them joining is a positive thing for representation of the African continent within BRICS. So we very much welcome that. From a practical point of view, as can be understood, as more members join, the committees become larger and larger. So the outcomes take a bit more longer because one has to find consensus. If you're looking for consensus amongst 6 countries, it's very easy to spot. It's going to be a bit easier than 18 countries, for example. So practically, I think we've got much more talking to get done, and the outcomes may be a little bit slower because we need to find consensus amongst more members.
So you're talking about facilitating trade within the BRICS nations. Africa has a program that it's developing through the African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement. Is the BRICS initiatives that you're working on going to help facilitate the African Continental Free Trade Agreement initiative as well?
Yes, it most certainly is. I can also point out that I'm also chairperson of the conference on the African Continental Free Trade Conference in July this year. I've been chairing the conference now for the 2nd year in a row. It very much fits in with what the free trade agreement in Africa wants. It wants more trade, inter-African trade, and the financial inclusion you spoke about, the cross-border payments that I was mentioning earlier, tie in very much with facilitating the agenda of the Continental Free Trade Agreement in Africa. Trying very much so, and it's ties in with the BRICS agenda as well, I must add.
All right, and perhaps finally, looking ahead, what are your hopes and aspirations for the BRICS Alliance in the next decade or so, particularly concerning financial services and economic collaboration?
Our view is that BRICS will have a massive impact. The issue that Africa has, for example, if you just look at Africa, is that inter-African trade is going to require a lot of infrastructural connectivity and development. Previously, if Nigeria exported to the US and the UK, you didn't need transport corridors within Africa itself. So inter-African trade is going to help with inter-African development at a grassroots brick and mortar level. You're going to find more transport corridors, more ports being developed, more airports being developed. You'll see a lot more travel between African countries. So infrastructure-wise, it's going to help the continent. South Africa-wise, it's certainly going to assist our economic activity, because for us to trade with Zambia or Botswana or surrounding countries is much easier than exporting to Australia, for example, or the UK, etc. And that's where we should naturally have been looking. But obviously, because of the maybe the colonial past or the apartheid structures, in South Africa, we never felt we were African. We felt we were part of European, etc. That's how it was put forward previously. But now we're very much rooted in the African continent. We want to see Africa develop together with us. The BRICS initiative is a fantastic, amazing, worldwide initiative of like-minded countries wanting the same economic development targets that we share with them. And it would be different from the developed world, obviously, because they're very, very, very much ahead of the curve economically. So their requirements and their consumption patterns and their development requirements are vastly different. So the work that we're doing, I think, will result 10 years down the line, in terms of the question that you asked, it'll be a completely different economic scenario. And we're very hopeful to achieve real change and real development across BRICS.
Professor Rajen Pillay, it's been a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much for joining us on the BRICS Africa channel.
Thank you very much, Peter. Always a pleasure. Thank you very much.